talk about an unfixable mistake that is very easy to make in Diablo Immortal. It's an unfixable mistake because it takes long periods of time to accomplish these stats. There's actually two major unfixable mistakes. Number one is going to be not getting into a warband and consistently doing your raids. Multiple reasons, let me walk you through it. Number one is going to be the Heliquary. You gain multiple combat rating stats, we have these new demonic remains, etc. You need to make sure you're doing your Heliquary raids. And the reason we want to make sure we're doing the warband variant of that is because if you do the warband variant, you are able to upgrade your ancestral tableau. You can see here I can upgrade and I got 5 more combat rating. Now I got 10 more combat rating just while we're sitting here, and the only thing that gives me this ability is the willingness to grind warband related activities. Now granted, there is somewhat of a catch-up mechanic of the first 1,000 points being easier, but you can basically go up to 1,500 points, etc., and be able to grind your warband over and over and over again if you're willing to do it through the castle. But the majority of this combat rating, etc., you are going to get is going to be coming from doing your Heliquary raids, which will double down with giving you long-term combat rating, because if you do your Heliquary raids, that's also going to give you the benefit of being able to upgrade your Heliquary. And if you do it with the warband, you're also going to get the it's going to be faster because you actually still get these even if you're not in the warband, now I think about it. But you're also going to get, if you have 4 or 8 people, you're going to get additional chests, and the additional chests can drop these, which will give you more additional, be able to remains to be able to salvage these at the blacksmith in order to upgrade your Heliquary. Basically, what it boils down to is people who have been doing their Heliquary every single time have way more combat rating than me, because they're at 150, 160, 170 of these ratings. And since there's effectively 5 of these, they can be 400 or 500 combat rating higher than I am at, even though I have been doing mine. I just miss some of them some of the time. So even somebody in a situation like me who's played since day one, I can be just in one area of the game 400 or 500 combat rating behind other people that have been playing this in the same warband as me, just from a lack of doing the raids. So I just really want to double down on this. If you are a new returning player or you're going to play this game long term, do not make the mistake of ignoring this. This is actually quite important, and maybe, in my opinion, was actually a mistake to add it in the game because of the longevity of having to grind it, etc. It's not very catch-upable, and it doesn't feel very good to do, especially time-gated things like the warband related combat rating. But this is a way that you do not have as much combat rating as other people if you're like me and you're not doing the tableau as much. Now, I did say there was 2 major mistakes. The number one would not being a warband and not doing your warband stuff to get the upgrades, the Heliquary raids, etc. But there is another significant mistake. I'm, of course, speaking about the fact that secondary attributes tend to be more important than resonance in a lot of situations. You need secondary stats in order to have things like decreasing the critical damage they hit, because if you have less armor than you need, it actually increases your enemy's critical hit damage. So having armor will stop that from happening. Armor penetration will allow you to increase your critical hit damage. And then potency actually increases the duration of negative effects. So things like your dots, for instance, your seeping bile will go longer in PvP if you have more potency, if you also in PvE, etc. So if you're doing some of the whirlwind farming builds with like the barbarian, or if you're using potency or using Banquet of the Eyes, or anything that's really a dot related type of stat, potency is quite important. And then resistance is the reverse of this, reducing the duration of those potency effects, which is incredibly obvious in PvP once you start to get it. These secondary stats tend, at least in PvP, to be even more important from what I've seen than resonance. Somebody who has like a 5k wings, but they have really juiced out secondary stats is going to perform better than someone that's got like 6k wings, but their secondary stats are like mine, where they haven't been doing it. So what's the major mistake I made that makes it where I'm not really working on my gems? It's not just that I didn't spend money on these, it's also the fact that I haven't really been doing my Ibn Sanctums every day. I haven't been worrying about grinding and getting all the keys so that I can go get these Bloodstained keys and turn these in order to get the Ibn Sanctum leveled up. So make sure you're doing your Ibn every day, but more importantly also, in order to get these gems, you need to be doing your hidden layers. And the hidden layers have been buffed now, where you can get significantly more gems than we've ever had. So they're even more important than they were before. And because we crunch the hell difficulty levels together, hidden layers can be very competitive now, and it seems like they don't show up as much, which is even more of a frustrating reason to kind of ignore them and not do them. But if you're not doing them, you're going to be massively behind other people that are in fact doing hidden layers. They're incredibly important for these secondary gems. Secondary gems just continue to get more and more and more important as the game goes on. For instance, they just added refinement into it in one of the latest patches that now adds even more base stats to this item items they're slotted into. And that's going to become more relevant as the set items become stronger and stronger. That percentage will increase those set items as well. So looking into it, looking back, if I could tell DM, hey, you don't want to make these 2 mistakes you're going to make in the game, it would, number one, be make sure that I'm doing all of my warband raids, not getting lazy and showing up in all of them, and making sure I'm just not busy and I can get in during the times my team's doing them. And then number 2 is going to be making sure I'm doing my hidden lairs every single day, doing my Iban Sanctum every single day, in order to get these secondary stats at a level that is still workable. Or else what you're going to end up with is a situation like mine, where most of the time when I go into next PvE and PvP, I just effectively don't even have these stats, and I'm going to have whatever the minimum bonuses are for whatever difficulty I'm in, and I'll just have to push through it with having good enough combat rating, as this is primarily a combat rating game, and that's the main stat that matters. But since the first one on this list actually affects combat rating, and the second one that I mentioned with the hidden lairs affects your secondary stats, if you do both of these, you're going to be in a much better position than if you did neither of them. Now, if any of this information was helpful, you're new to the channel or new to Diablo Immortal, consider subscribing, as I'll be covering Immortal every single day and have been for the last year. I did 56 videos on it just last month, and I also have a link in the pinned comment as well as the description where you can subscribe to my Diablo 4 channel, in which I'm putting out Diablo 4 content every single day. And just so you can see it real quick, it is DM Diablo 4. You can find me right there. It's the one with 2,000 subscribers and just a handful of videos out as I just started.